Hi everyone, this is Leatherass for StoxPoker.com. Today I have two tables of 3-6 no limit, and I don't have anything on agenda in terms of what I'm going to try and focus on, but I will say I would like to be a little more aggressive in this session, so I'm going to try to err on the side of playing a more looser and aggressive style, and hopefully we can kind of get in some fun spots. The more hands I play, the more chance of that, so that's what I'm going to do. So with ace-6 here with a limper, I'm going to go ahead and make it 36 here. And we get the caller. He seems a little bit fishy. I have a note on him already, so I know that he's not the best of players, but looks like he's going to take a little off me on this pot, so that's the way it goes. Ooh, he's a bluffer. He must know he's on a StoxPoker video here, because he's just trying to show off apparently. Okay, so we have a min raise under the gun, but king 6 off's just not very good, so I'm going to pass on that one. We do know one thing, that if he is bluffing, he might, possibly like to keep it on the cheap side, because that was just a min raise by him, so that's something to keep in mind. I'm going to go ahead and pop up the Jack 5 here also. A little better result that time. Alright, so King Jack, we got a limper, but I'm just going to go ahead and raise him up. And Spoon Dog's in there, I like to see it. And we'll go ahead and just raise up the 9-4 suited also. Not sure what to make of this flop here. I'm going to c-bet it. I don't think he's going to try to bluff me again, so somebody has an ace then. I guess I'll get played back at, but doesn't look like anybody did. Okay, so we have a min raise from Purdy here. Looks like I don't have any read on him as being good. I don't have a read on him necessarily being terrible either, but he does have a big stack, and I'd like to get into that, but I'm going to start by coming after him a little with King 10 suited here. My image is definitely off to a tricky start here. I've raised just about every pot. Not sure what I would have done if I would have gotten check raised. I probably would have just put all my money in and just hoped he didn't have me. I'm not exactly sure. When you start playing this crazy, I don't think you can make big folds like top pair in a raise-re-raise pot. Although at the same time, I don't know if I'm thought of as being crazy just yet. So a little bit of it, that would have been a pretty tricky spot if I would have gotten played back at. But I definitely feel I had to bet it. I didn't want to get tricky trappy or try to go for pot control or any of that. I'm not too big of a pot control guy. I like to when it makes sense, but I'd much rather get in there and keep putting pressure on people, keep putting them to the test. So it should be a fun, exciting session. I'm pretty aggressive, and at times can be very loose and very aggressive. At times I can knit it up too. Just kind of depends on what makes sense for the situation. But I'm just going to stay loose and aggressive and give a lot of action and hope for the best. We have a limper with ace-8 offsuit. Not the best. I think I'm going to pass this time. I think King Jack just kind of plays a little bit better than ace-8, and I do have the whole rest of the table to go through, a couple of which are pretty aggressive players. And we've always had good old Spoon Dog. He's going to limp 6-8 offsuit and call a raise and then raise a flop with air. But that's okay. You want those players at your table. It's a good play by him, though. Maybe it worked. But I'm really attacking Spoon Dog. I'm not in the best position to do so. Just sort of a neutral position on him. Two guys on either side of me. But when it makes sense, I'm certainly going to come after him. And I'm going to definitely try to make sense of it a lot. All right, so pocket nines on the bottom right. We have an under the gun raiser, and I think I'm just going to take a flop. And these are always the tricky spots when you get under the gun raise. You can do a variety of things, but let's start off by checking to him. And he bets just under pot. This is very, very tough here. This could mean obviously a number of things. I think we're going to start off by calling one time, and I think that was a good decision. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and lead now. Well, yeah, let's just lead. Hopefully he has something he can go with. All right, so unfortunately didn't get more, hitting the joker on the turn there, but, and I could have maybe gone for a check raise or, maybe even a check call. But, it's kind of a tough spot, and I like to balance my actions there. I can do a variety of different things there, and sometimes I'll check, sometimes I'll bet. I just like to kind of keep people off balance a little, so that time I chose to lead out. Really difficult to say what was best there. You hate to have him take a free card when he would have paid for it. So if he had a hand like ace-jack there, or, pocket queens or something like that, he's going to at least call the turn, whereas he's probably going to go for pot control with a hand like that. So that's an argument for leading out. But then trying to get him to maybe bluff one more street is also an argument for checking. But I do think that I feel pretty good about leading out there on the turn. But I don't think you can go too wrong either way. It's kind of hard to screw up a set. And you have to obviously be careful about not getting too results oriented. Why am I second guessing myself right now? Well, that's because he folded, which was basically the one and only thing I didn't want to happen. Had he shoved on me with pocket jacks there, or some sort of big semi-bluff, or something like that, then, I probably wouldn't even be talking about that right now. But it's best to just kind of hash out what your options are, and then sort of from there, excuse me, you can kind of make sense of things. So it's oftentimes better to do that, when you don't have 6 tables going at once or something like that, just to go ahead and try to do the math, or kind of hash things out in your head, or post in a forum, what you think is the best line in certain things. But I wouldn't try not to be results oriented, and also try not to beat yourself up too much while you're playing. So I think we're just going to keep coming after Purdy Hair here, and we'll kind of start to see how he reacts. Okay, so we flop bottom pair, and we're going to lead out for about 80% pot, and he quickly calls. This is tough. I might go for a little check raise here. I just don't think he's going to quickly call with anything less than that. I don't think my hand is good either. Oh boy. What have I got myself into here? I just didn't think he'd have a hand like listing on a check raise. I think I just need to give up now. Okay, so what happened there is I went with a timing tell, and it just unfortunately didn't work out. You rarely see guys snap call hands like that. Usually they have some sort of decision with that. So that one I'm actually not going to second guess myself at all. I feel pretty good about um, the way I played that one. When a guy snap calls like that, um, I'm just putting him on, I don't know, some kind of like pocket fours or just some sort of, hand that you'd limp in and maybe caught something, maybe even like ace three. Definitely nothing he can withstand a check raise there on the turn, especially with his small bet. It just looks like he's trying to get some sort of protection. But even if it was a more of a medium-sized bet, I still think I would have gone with the check raise there. It just felt right, and I'd do it again if I could. I think that was the play there. It really is rare that you see. I mean, I can't imagine how he came to that decision. He flopped trips, and it's almost like he just panicked and just instantly called. Just very rare. You just don't see guys do that. And so I went with a timing till, and that's usually a very reliable timing till. I expected that check raise to work almost, I mean, literally close to 100% of the time. And the times that it didn't work, I figured him to have some sort of flush draw where hopefully the river, if he missed it, the river would go check, check, and my pair of threes would be good. All right, so at the king four, I'm going to go ahead and open here. Unfortunately, our donkey here was replaced by a guy by the screen name of Ryzen, who I'm pretty sure is, at the very least, a solid player. So hopefully right now we're just going to take the attitude that Purdy here is just holding our money for. He's sitting there fat and happy with 1700, but he's not very good. And if he stays here long enough, it's going to somebody. So hopefully we can be fortunate enough to be the ones to get it. All right, so pocket nines, easy open. Really bad flop. It's going to seem to hit him a lot, but I'm just going to go ahead and fire it out and hope to take it down. So that's always nice when you get a board that ugly where you're really, there's no good card for you on the turn. Even a 9 can get me in a lot of trouble. So it's always nice when your continuation bet works on that board. So we can go ahead and, I like to make little notes. I'm pretty confident that he may not be a complete fish, but he's a fish for these games, no doubt, from what I can tell so far. If he does something that changes my mind, though, I'll maybe erase it from him. But he's kind of an unknown to the basically. I mean, he's playing a limit that I have played a lot of, and I don't have any numbers on him. So that definitely leads me to believe that he's a little fishy, because anybody that's new to a site and playing a higher limit is either an existing pro from, say, a site like Full Tilt or something like that, or he's just sort of a noob, and the chances are that he's a new guy to the site, limping in pre-flop and stuff like that, and the chance that he's good is pretty slim, I think, anyway. So it's actually not an easy table by any means. We're pretty much all here just for Purdy hair. I don't think Big D is anything special. I don't think he's horrible though. But we're certainly here for Purdy hair. And that also is a good indicator that this table is, that Purdy hair is bad, because Villeroy, Quick Stills, both good multi-tablers, sitting here with me and another guy that's a kind of shorty but not necessarily a bad player. They'd get up and leave if Purdy hair was good. There would be no value in staying at the table. So Queen 8 suited, I'm going to raise up the limper here. We get a call from the big blind. Hopefully Belladonna doesn't go crazy with us and like shove it or something. Okay, so here's one where I'm going to more than likely be prepared to fire a couple bullets here. You know, I'm just going to go ahead and rep a big pair the whole way. So I'm going to start by making it 75, and I'm not going to go too much on this streak because I want to save some room to bluff later in the hand. And also to see how Ryzen acts. If I make it too big and he comes over the top, then I've invested too much. 7-4 against, even with a limper, I'm going to pass this time. You know, on this, I mean, I guess sometimes I can be too optimistic in thinking that a fish is going to fold a full house. I mean, he might have pocket threes here and just be like, hey, I have a full house. This is a little bit of a tricky spot for me. Getting re-raised here, this is no fun. We're 100, you know, like 100 blinds, a little more than 100 blinds deep. I mean, I could call and see what he does on the turn. I think that's what I'm going to do, and maybe try to spike like a queen or something. Or to pick up another card maybe later to bluff at if he chickens out and doesn't fire. I mean, this guy could even have a 2, who knows. Somewhat of a debatable call on the turn there, but I don't mind it. I prefer it if I had a little more of a read on the player that they might actually fold, but there can be some pretty huge value in trying to spike a queen there. Possibly getting 2 shots at it, possibly an ace comes on the turn, which is probably as good as a queen for me, because he can't call if an ace hits and he checks to me and I, you know, make a big bet. So there were several good things that could happen by calling that turn. He made it cheap enough. You know, I'm just not going to worry about a deuce for quads there. And, you know, if a queen comes, I'm going to play it like the nuts. And I was getting like, I don't even know, 5, 6 to 1. Plus, you know, maybe having the king and ace as outs too, in terms of bluffing outs. So pretty interesting spot there. I'll have to admit I was a little bit stunned to see him re-raise me on the flop there. I mean, I guess there's a chance he limped with something big too, but, you know, it was just a risk I was willing to take. But this Belladonna is definitely a fish. There's no question about that. He's just playing really weird poker. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet up quick stills here. He's got to give me a lot of respect here. I haven't 3-bet him, and, you know, his raise came from under the gun, yet I'm still 3-betting. So while that increases the likelihood I'm getting played back at, it also means he's going to fold a wider range of hands, putting me on a bigger hand. I shouldn't say it necessarily increases how often I get played back at, because in blind wars you probably get played back at more, but it increases the likelihood that I'm up against a real hand pre-flop. So, he could easily have, an ace queen, ace king, something like that, but I can fold out an ace queen against a more solid player there. Just figuring that if I'm going to raise him from under the gun, I'm going to, especially out of position, I'm going to have something. All right, so ace king suited. These limits, it's not that I'm playing a tremendously high limit or anything, but it's a big enough limit to get ace king suited all in pre-flop all day long. These guys are, reasonably aggressive, and I play ace king suited like the nuts. I may not necessarily be jumping up and down about getting it all in with it, but I'm certainly never going to fold pre-flop, which is kind of one of those hands in a more passive game really goes down in value as far as trying to get it in pre-flop. All right, so we're going to raise up Belladonna here. Wow, making some interesting ones. I'm going to make a loose call here and just really hope to flop lucky. It was more of a min type raise. And in position, a lot of wonderful things can happen, especially when you got a guy who's going to bet 150 into a $75 pot. I mean, my implied odds are through the roof if I flop two pair or, flush or something like that. It's pretty much going in 100% of the time. So to risk 18, I don't need to flop, to win like to win $600. I'm getting like 30 to 1 like when he's going to play his hand that way. So I'm definitely going to flop something good more often than that. But we're going to have to just be patient with him. Just, I'm not going to stop coming after him. But I might wait to have something a little more like suited and connecting or something like that where, something better than Queen 3 that I can get them all the money in on a lot of reasonable flops. All right, so the numbers came in on Purdy here. He's at 39.9. Folds the flop at 80. Goes to showdown 22, but these are real unimportant numbers at this point. His pre-flop, his VPIP and his pre-flop raise is important to me at this point because over 33 hands, that actually still does give me a decent idea of what he plays. I would imagine his numbers will be within like 5 points of that, like even after a large sample. The fold to flop and went to showdown are more or less meaningless right now. I actually should have made that 18 with the big blind being a short stacker. That was a little too much to make it. And I'm just going to make a small, just like third pot continuation bet and hope it works. Kind of had a feeling that was going to happen. Once I make it so much pre-flop, he has a pretty good price to just call with his really big hands and then check raise any flop. All right, so pocket tens, I'm going to raise it up. I've been toying around with the concept of raising 3 times the big blind from early position and 4 times later, just so I'm playing bigger pots in position and smaller pots out of position. I can't say for sure if it's how I'm doing. I certainly can't quantify it. It seems okay, but I just something I'm toying around with. Tomorrow I might be doing something differently. Who knows? All right, so hopefully this is the pot we've all been waiting for here against Purdy here. I'm going to start by betting close to pot and watching him snap fold. I'm going to come after Lyric here a little bit, King Jack offsuit. Make it 72. And he's pretty loose aggressive, so we'll be getting in real light if need be. But I'm more than happy just to take it down there. No variance involved with that. If Belladonna calls, I'll probably call here at 10-8 suited. It's unlikely to get squeezed, I think, because it came from under the gun. I think people are less apt to squeeze under the gun raisers because everyone knows that people squeeze light, and so the under the gun raiser is likely to shove almost anything. So I think squeezing under the gun raisers is not necessarily a good idea. So this could be a tricky spot. If Belladonna does something stupid, I'm just going to play for stacks. I mean, if he leads out for $100, I'm just going to go with it. Right now I'm going to make a smallish raise, something to sort of shut out Ryzen. So we'll see how it goes. So we got a fold there. That's perfectly okay by me, obviously, but I was going with that hand. I'm not gonna, if he min 3 bets me back or shoves all in or does something ridiculous, I'm just, if he flops a set or something, good for him. If you feel like you're getting pushed around, I definitely recommend just, if you flop top pair or something, just go with it, against these types of opponents. I mean, if they're just going to make all these raises on you and do all that stuff, I mean, you'd be shocked at what they show up with sometimes when they, like, shove all in there and stuff like that. You just have to kind of go with the hand. There's a certain amount of high variance associated with playing them, but long run, they're pretty nice to have around. Okay, so 5-4 suited. I'm going to go ahead and open, but for only 3 times due to the short stack in the big blind. All right, so we're playing a 36-33 here on the screen on the right, and a 31-31. So definitely pretty loose and aggressive. We've 3-bet Lyric before. He's definitely not the type that likes to get pushed around. So what I might do is just call here and put a little play on him on a lot of different kind of flops. Here I flop the second nut flush draw. So this would be a little bit of a tricky spot. With the 8-9, I'm just going to take a flop. I'm just going to start by just calling here. and hopefully that scares him a little bit to kind of get me to the river, and I might be able to make a little bet on the turn and blow him off something if he or on the river. If he doesn't have an ace here, he can't call, and so I'm just going to take a little stab. Looks like he's going for pot control, yeah, on the turn. So, you know, definitely a few ways to play that one. I don't know if the check raise would have got him off the hand either. But basically by, all right, ace queen, I'm going to call this shorty here. But basically by check calling there and then making a stab later on in the hand, I'm forcing him to have an ace. And then I also obviously have my flush draw outs. It's a little tricky. I mean, if a spade comes, I'm just going to have to, it's going to be interesting to see sort of how I extract value out of him, and also maybe, you know, I could definitely be up against the nuts too, so that's going to be a tricky spot to sort of balance getting value and not stacking off either. Okay, so against Big D here, I probably should have just folded pre-flop. I didn't realize he was shorty, and I was sort of focusing on the other table. But since I did call, I did get a good flop, but the problem is if he calls me, I'm toast. And also, he could call with even like a draw of some kind, and he's going to be probably a huge favorite because the board can pair and counterfeit me. I'm just going to fold and give it up and kind of, you know, chalk that up as a small mistake for even getting involved pre-flop. But sort of another thing, the king-queen is sort of a glimpse into what I've been doing a little bit in defending. I've been sort of experimenting with defending my blind a little more and sort of coming up with various sort of lines to take it away from these guys. Once it appears as if, you know, like what sort of lines look like they've given up, when to take good stabs. And I've sort of experimented around with calling more, and then just sort of, when I find weakness, pouncing on it. I'm going to get off this table because I guarantee these guys will both leave here, and there's not going to be a game anyway. All right, here we go. So yeah, I've been experimenting, like I said, with defending. So that might be one area where I'm not an expert on, because usually I'm more or less the kind of guy that likes to just 3-bet it. And if I get 4-bet, more than likely give a hand like king queen up, or, you know, firing those big C bets on the flop and really putting them to the test. That's more or less my style, is to really attack people. But I'm also, in terms of balance, trying to call a little bit more, because for the most part, the only hands I've been calling with in the blinds have been pocket pairs. And I think you need to have a little bit bigger range, a little bit bigger calling range in the blinds than just pocket pairs, because you're going to be very easy to play against if, you know, if you start playing tens of thousands of hands with the same guys, you know, they're going to start to pick up on the fact that the only hands you're calling with from the blinds are pocket pairs. And so if you check raise a flop, you know, they're going to know that you're more or less probably just check raising, you know, if the flop comes 7-2, you know, you're check raising your pocket fives and trying to take down the pot there. But they're going to know that, like, you only pretty much have, like, pocket pairs. And so unless you flop a set, you don't have anything, you know, that can withstand a lot of heat. So they can really put the pressure on you, and it's just, Also, you're just not going to get any, you're not going to get a lot of action with your pocket pairs. You're not going to win stacks because people know if you want to play for stacks, it's because you flopped a set and they can start to get away from their hand. I mean, maybe I'm giving them a little bit too much credit, but, at these higher limits, I just think having any sort of set rule or any sort of way of letting them know any more information about your hand than they need to know is just not optimal poker. So I'm trying to expand my range and I'm experimenting with some lines. And so if we think about the king-queen hand, my options were to lead out, check call, or check raise. So by leading out, I can get raised and be in a really sick spot. By check raising, I can also get 3-bet and be in a really sick spot, having such a big draw. I'm going to go ahead and bet 36 and do a $37 pot here with the queen 10. So by check calling, okay, so we get check raised here. And I think we're going to let it go this time. There are a few different options you can take when people start to get in the habit of check raising you on boards like that too, but we might save that for a later video. So I'm going to raise up the ace-9. So by check calling, I put myself in a good position to A, draw cheaply, maybe even to the nuts if the king of spades hits, but if nothing else to the second nuts, which is going to be a very strong hand, obviously. And also, I gave myself an opportunity to take down the pot cheaply. So all I had to do is check call there, and I can bluff the river, because on the turn, he's more or less going to give up on boards where he doesn't have anything. He's almost never going to bet the turn there unless he has a really strong hand, like a set or a flush. And so I'm mostly going to get to the turn, because he's not going to bet the turn with like that ace-5 there, because he's going to go for pot control, and he's just going to pretty much call the river as long as it's not a spade. Or if it is, if he did have like ace-5 with the 5 of spades, he's probably going to call the river. So, boy, that's sort of a mouthful. I'm almost confusing myself here. But anyway, so the turn's going to go check, check so often. So for just calling that flop bet, I'm going to get to the river a lot. I'm just going to shove this flush draw here. Oh, I got called. Oh, I made it. Oh, I coolered him. Too bad that wasn't a bigger pot. That could have been fun. So, and then I can also take down the pot in the cheapest possible way by check calling and leading out the river. So I don't know. I don't hate my line there. I just haven't thought about it much. I kind of did that on the fly, and this is a very recent thing for me to experiment with these kind of lines. All right, so the tens. I'm going to take a flop. Well, yeah, I think I have to take a flop here in position. He's a pretty loose, aggressive player. So my hand figures to probably be fairly neutral against his range. But with a flop like that, I'm just going to go ahead and give it up. It would have been a pretty interesting spot. I like to have a plan for the hand before I do anything like take flops there in marginal sorts of situations. And I'll have to admit, trying to organize all these thoughts and making the video, I didn't actually have a plan there, so that was kind of bad of me. I'm not sure what I would have done if the flop would have been like, 7-4-4 or something like that. I guess more likely I would have just put my money in, but that brings me to another new point of always having a plan with your hands. Like if like say for example you have like pocket nines, and I'm not saying this is necessarily the best way to play this, but let's just say you raise from the cutoff with pocket nines, say in a 5-10 game, and you make it like, I don't know, 35. And he comes over the top of you and makes it like 110, 115. So you've got like $80 to call. I recommend before you even make that call, I mean, it's debatable. You could even fold there. you know, that would be certainly an option for a really tight player. I don't really do that myself, but um, let's just say you decide, you know, between calling and folding. Well, if you are going to call, I really recommend that you have a plan for the hand. So your plan might be to just try to flop a set, and if you don't, then you're just done with the hand. Or your plan might be to shove as long as you flop an overpair with your pocket nines. Or your plan might be to check raise an ace high board, or some sort of dry flop that, you know, really puts the pressure back on him, or whatever it is. I really recommend you don't just sort of blindly throw your money in, because I know that's kind of how I used to do them, and just kind of hope I'd hit a 9, you know, and I'd just throw my money in and, you know, figure I had somewhat close to set odds and just kind of hope a 9, and then maybe like the flop would be like Jack 7-3, and I would check call 1, but then I had no idea what I was doing on the turn if he bet, and I just really don't recommend getting in these sorts of crazy spots, especially with loose aggressive players who aren't just going to give up necessarily. So, you know, just because you check call, you know, check calling is just not the greatest in that spot, because overcards can come and he can fire again and you have no idea what to do, and so on and so forth. So anyway, that's getting a little more strategic, me talking about that, but the point of it was to always have a plan. And I think if you play poker and, you know, when you have decisions, you need to understand that there's sort of a compounding effect in every decision you make. You know, it might just be in a 5-10 game, it might just be $80 now, but it's $1,000 by the river. You know, if you're wrong and go the whole way. So just, I really recommend, like I said, just to kind of drive the point home more, is to really just always have a plan before you make your decisions. And I think that'll make poker a lot easier. And it also allows you to not make mistakes in the heat of the moment, because if you have a plan and you're just sticking to the plan, then, you know, maybe if your plan is flawed, that's the only way you can go wrong, but other than that, you're going to definitely minimize your mistakes. All right, so the cast 3-bet me here, and he's very loose and aggressive. I'm going to 4-bet him up, and I'm going to have to fold if he shoves on me. But I think this will be successful often enough versus him, so take it down there, which is nice, obviously. Sort of a high variance, nervous sort of play, but you know, you're definitely kind of holding your breath whether you're getting shoved on or not there, especially if you're, well, for me, if I'm playing like a 25-50 or something like that, and there's a couple thousand in the middle, it's not the most fun of spots. But it's really nice when it works, and I think it's a good play because it really balances when you do actually have a hand. You know, if you're 4-betting and folding on occasion, people know that people are just more likely to shove. And when you have even a hand like queens, you can start to get it in really good when they shove their pocket 8s or whatever. So, but it also sends a message. So, you know, you can't just sit there and 3-bet me. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that loose aggressive style. I think I continued my streak of losing money. I'm not sure. 400 here. That must have taken into account from some earlier play. I don't know. I think I lost a little bit. It was fun making the video for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you have some questions on it. I look forward to answering them. I'm out. Take care. Bye.